But just gently closing your eyes as a helper to come into doing something a bit different now. Meditation, different way of experiencing life than when we have our eyes open often. Just permitting that kind of sedimenting down, like when the river is a bit churned up after a storm and the water's not that clear. Just sometimes closing our eyes is the beginning of allowing all the debris and the extra sand and mud to just start to come down to the bottom. Just staying with that for a few moments, feeling into that imagery of closing our eyes and settling. And feeling how is the connection between the outside of your body meeting the outside, which is basically just the oxygen around you. But just that boundary of, oh, this is self. Is there any tensions on the skin or in the muscles? Feeling into that. As we allow ourselves to, as if we could sink, holding our nose, sink with our legs cross-legged, sink into a deep river or pool and let things settle. Let the dust settle around us. And without organizing it in a particular way or technique, just taking some really deep breaths so that we're breathing some fresh air right into the kind of back caves of our lower belly and hip area. And then breathing all of the air out, even if there's maybe some old air there that needs breathing out. Just as a way of settling, arriving. Without any forcing, any straining of the breathing muscles. Meditation for you, for this beginning of meditation, would also be to feel how it is when there is no need to be being someone, to be defending ourselves as a being in any way, or like that forward movement in life of getting out there and doing our jobs and doing our things and all those functionalities of the self. And just that, how is it when that can just sit down and go, just breathe out a big sigh from beingness in all the different functionalities of that that are part of our life, part of just natural, part of being a human being, to take on roles. And can you feel if there's any tension left over from having had a role, from having been someone today, even physically, just on the top of the shoulders, maybe around the neck? And this is part of settling, steadying the body, mind, is this settling at the same time as, oh yes, that left a residue of tension. And as we become more aware and mindful in our settling, we can let go. We can go, oh, I don't need to be holding that tension in this moment now. Holding that energy of beingness with all its motivations. Opening up our senses to listening to any sensory touch, any hearing, any smelling, tasting, any knowing of these awarenesses. It's fine to hop around and to, oh, there's a sound. How is that touching me? Oh, there's that taste in my mouth, a bit dry or some sweet or salt left, or I don't know. The touch of my clothing or of my hands on my thighs. The smell of the room we're in. Knowing the awareness of the sensory world. and allowing those long, deep breaths to help us to settle. People often say after a retreat or at the end of a meditation that they're going back to reality. And how about if this is reality? Just what you can be aware of right now. Oh, we need to take some time to feel what is this reality of now? Take some time to know reality from the inside. And breathing deeply, breathing out deeply. There can be a peacefulness that we can drop into so smoothly, in a sense, when we let go of jumping out of reality, when we're jumping out into anxieties and idea driven moments, ideas of how the world sees us or how we see ourselves, how we should be, how we think we should be, what we think we should be doing, how we think we should be, or how we think others think we should, lots of should. And when we come out of this mode and just spend some time, almost like going into our little submarine, if that's not a frightening image for you, maybe without the submarine, just the capacity to sit cross-legged and sink into water and sit on the bottom of the river with no problem to breathe deeply. As metaphor for just settling in with reality here now. feeling into what is inside our skin, of that matter, the flesh, the bones, the liquids, the pumping heart, the breathing lungs, the brain with so many neural systems and so many concepts of this being, this self, so many pressures onto something that's actually some weighty, solid stuff, some liquids, some air, some energy. Lots of ideas piled in there. There's the part of our brain system that has an image of our body. And there's also a part of us that we can't quite pinpoint, that senses the whole of this beingness from inside. The pulsations of energy, the flowings of different liquids, the muscles, the tendons, the thoughts, the feelings. And coming back to this really basic reality of what we are made up of, like the components that make this vehicle we call self. Like when we feel them individually, when we feel just feelings or just the effects of thoughts or the effects of having liquid or bones, flesh in the body. This can take away a bit the pressure of our self-perception. And allow it to drop away. All the knots that we tie around ourselves in how we self perceive and project out, and then put pressure on ourselves. We imagine we can't do this, or we do too much of that. And these are one of the aggregates, one of the things that makes the sense of beingness, perception. And perceptions of ourselves are like dreams. They don't exist any more than dreams. They're flimsy, impermanent. We're creating some space to be with the inside feeling of body, to listen to our inner weather vane. I think in Finnish it's called tuuliviiri. This thing on the roof that shows where the wind is blowing. Listening inside for this, where our self-perception is too brittle, where physically we're holding tight to an idea of ourself. And it can melt. Just like the brittleness of a magnum ice cream. The chocolate on the outside that's brittle, and then a few moments in the sun, and it's not so brittle. Our perceptions of self are brittle tensions that we hold on to, limiting ourselves. If we can feel that brittleness whilst we're taking deep breaths, we can allow some of it to melt away, to not be taken in, to not believe. This self-use. Throughout our day, as we get carried away by ideas of ourself or integrating other people's ideas of us, other people's perceptions that we put on like brittle clothing, we can stop and breathe into our low belly. Feel the liquids in our body, the soft organs, the air, the space, the ground. And allow that brittleness to not be so real. To not hold us. And in the gentle space of settling, steadying, breathing deeply, just like that one that cross-legged floats down to the bottom of the river. with the capacity to breathe underwater, our safe space. We can also allow ourselves some kindness for our unkindness to ourselves, for the pressures we've put on ourselves, for the holding too tightly to a sense of self, to a sense of this is really me. That is not true. We can be kind in how we may encounter some hardness in ourselves. We can be soft and hold that gently in our arms, that hardness, even if it's an illusion, the self that we put too much pressure on to need to be something, to need to perform something. So to be kind with our delusions, kind but clear, clear seeing of this brittleness of a sense of self that we get carried away with. So coming towards the end of this meditation, I will leave the last few minutes for just relaxing into the gentleness of being focused in this way, lightly kind to ourselves, but our inner eyes wide open to see clearly. We come to the end of this meditation. I invite you to practice with this in daily life, of feeling into your body when you know there's that kind of on the top of the skin tension, that brittleness of a pressure about ourselves that we can feel physically. And this physical feeling can really help us to know that, I'm holding too tightly. And I can sit back and breathe deeply a bit. I don't need to hold on to these self-perceptions that are not helping me. I offer you this for this evening, and if it's helpful, please take it with you. And if it's not, let it sit for some time, and maybe it will be helpful later. And if it's not at all, just let it go. Thank you very much.